ready to accept your microservices. So the key points of this video will be installing Kubernetes, installing Docker, setting up Kubernetes, adding Kubernetes network plugin, joining the worker nodes if you have worker nodes, and at the end I'll give you an idea of how to remove Kubernetes by cleaning up the system. So I've prepared this document that I'll be providing in the description of the video that you can follow to install Kubernetes. So you can SSH to your VM or use the terminal in the Ubuntu VM itself. I'm using the Mac terminal and I'm SSHing to my VM. So right now I'm in the VM and I'll start using the document. So first of all, you need to work as a root. So I'm just gonna do sudo su, and now I'm a root in the system, and I'm gonna run these two commands, which is gonna install Docker for me. And after running these two commands, to make sure that you have the Docker installed, you'll do docker virgin. Yes, Docker is running in the system. So let's move to the next point. If your system has proxy, if you're running like in an enterprise, so you're running your VM behind a proxy, so you need to follow this document. This link will give you like an idea on how to put or inject your proxies into the Docker, so that you will not run into issues when you're trying to create containers. And after you inject the proxies from this link, you're just gonna restart Docker and it will be working for you. So then let's move on to installing Kubernetes elements, which is kubelet, kubectl, and kubeadm. So kubelet is responsible for the connectivity between nodes. kubectl, which is the kube controller, that it's controlling your Kubernetes, and kubeadm, which is the administration, so that you have, if you want to install Kubernetes, you will use kubeadm, and join the worker nodes, you will use this command. So let's install it. Run the following commands line by line to install it in your cluster. So I ran the first one and now copying the second one. And finally just copy these two and paste it. As you can see right here, I have Kubernetes element installed. So now let's move on to setting up Kubernetes. So first of all, you need to add the IP address and some flags for the environment, so that it will accept like joining other nodes if you have other nodes. So if you go to this path and you have to add this line, which is going to give you the environment and some flags that you need to add. So let's go and do that. So let's copy this line, paste it right here, and change this to your IP address. This is my IP address for this particular VM. If you don't know how to get your IP address, you just say ifconfig, and you will have your IP address, as you can see right here. So let's move on to the next point. After you add the line, you need to restart kubelet, so that when you try to connect the other nodes, you will run smoothly. So after restarting kubelet, now let's move on and install Kubernetes. Install Kubernetes. So you need to run these commands not as root. So exit from being a root and start running these commands. So let's run the first one. And let's run the second one. And to run the second one, you need to change your IP address to your cluster IP address. your VM, I mean, and it'll be 195.177.197 for me, and it will start installing Kubernetes for you. So after initializing Kubernetes, you need to run some commands that it's provided by the installation of Kubernetes, initialization of Kubernetes. So let's run this for the first 3 commands that it gave. So now let's move to the second point, which is installing the network plugin. The initialization of Kubernetes will give you this link. This link will show you documentation of Kubernetes and show you the list of network plugins that you can use. For the purpose of the demo, I used WeaveNet. So if you click on WeaveNet and just copy and paste this command, that will install the Kubernetes plugin for you. And now WeaveNet is installed. And the last point would be joining other nodes. So if you have other nodes that you need to join to this cluster, you need to use this line in the second node that you have. So what I usually do is just create a file called node join.txt and just paste that to have it as a reference. So at this point, if you're not going to configure like another nodes, like worker nodes, and join it to the Kubernetes, you're just going to move on to the next step, which is deploy your microservices. But if you are, you have to go through all the documentation from the start, install Docker, Kubernetes, and all these files, except you're not going to initialize the node. So I'm gonna do it for the purpose of the demo, but I'm only gonna show you the node join part. So at this point, I am in the worker node. I've installed Docker, Kubernetes, and I have modified the .conf file to add the worker's IP address. Now all I have to do is go to the master, get the command that I stored in the text file, and paste it on the worker. You need to run that as root, so just sudo before the command. And now if you go back to the master and run git nodes, you will have the 2 nodes showing. It's going to take like a minute to change the status of the worker from not ready to ready. So as you can see right here, I have the 2 nodes working, and they are both ready to accept microservices. So in the Kubernetes documentation, I found that there is kube controller autocomplete to help you write Kubernetes commands. So all you have to do is go to the documentation that I gave, and just modify this file that you have it, which is .bashrc, and add this line at the bottom of the code. So as you can see right here, if you go to the bottom, you will find the code that I have added, so that now every time that I start typing the command, I only have to press tab and it will autocomplete it for me. So after doing that, you need to restart your master so that it works for you. So let's start typing kube controller and hit tab. So if I hit tab twice, it's going to show me all the commands that kube controller is capable of. Is like apply, create, that used to create pods, delete to delete deployments, pods, nodes. You have execute to go inside a container, and then you have get to get some information about the system. So I used get before to get the information on how many nodes that we have. So we have 2 nodes. Now let's try to run some applications in the cluster to see if Kubernetes is working or not. So I provided a command that if you run in the Kubernetes master, you should have a deployment of Nginx, and you will have 4 replicas. That means 4 containers running the same image. So it's saying that it's created. So all I have to do is Kubernetes get pods, and you will have it all as running. So if you need to know specifically where this pod is running, so add to the previous command -o wide, and you will have it. It will give you the IP address of the pod itself, and it will show you where in which node that is running, in which VM. So right now it is running, so let's delete this. So kube control delete, and then say deployment, and it's called I called it Nginx, so I'm just gonna start typing Nginx and then hit tab, and it will auto complete it for me. Now it's deleted. Let's check on the pods. It's terminating. One more time. Still terminating. And now all the pods are terminated. Now we've reached the last point of this video, which is cleaning up Kubernetes to delete all the nodes that you have. So let's start by first deleting the Kubernetes plugin that we added. So if you copy this command and run it, you will delete the Kubernetes plugin, which is WeaveNet in this case. So now let's move on to actually draining every node, so that Kubernetes will not assign any new containers to these nodes. So first you drain the worker, then you drain the master, and the master usually takes a longer time to drain. So if you press double tap, it will show you all the nodes that you have. I have 2 nodes, MCN1 and MCN2. So I have 1 as the master and 2 as the worker. So I will drain the 2 first, and then I'm gonna drain the first one, and after that I'm gonna delete them both. And now let's delete the nodes that we have. So delete node, then you put the name of the node. So we have MCN2 and then MCN1. And now all the nodes are deleted. So you need to run 2 other commands to wipe Kubernetes from your system in both nodes. So you run it on the master, and you will go to the worker and run the same. And now the system is cleared from Kubernetes. So going back to the presentation that we have, in this video I have installed Kubernetes, Docker, set up Kubernetes, added the network plugin, joined the worker nodes, added some applications, and then clear the system.